You Irish?
Yeah, Fitzy, you talk that French stuff, don't you?
It can be somewhat frustrating.
I moved down here first, I had a clue what half of you were saying half the time.
Blind hope and just kind of hoping you're going to get to where you get to.
Miscommunication is built in. It's just going to happen. My first experience in a call center, I was I was a data inputter for store cards, and that was quite difficult because all of the stores are in England in various different chains, and you were trying to listen to someone on the phone over a weak phone line in a lot of the time in a very difficult to understand accent or even broken English, with background noise in your own call centre and in the shop in England. So it was very difficult to use the phonetic alphabet, A for alpha, B for beta, and all that kind of thing, to try and cover all the little different aspects. You had to enter long strings of numbers for credit cards and other addresses and things like that. If any of those details were wrong, that was right off and it would be rejected. So you were under huge pressure to understand everything everyone said.
And I mean, there are quite a few factors for stuff like that. You know, I mean, for example, you have accent, or even, how should we say, the difference between maybe formal vocabulary or even just slang from different areas. You know, when I moved down here first, I had a clue what half of you were saying half the time. You know, just intonation, other things like that as well. And, you know, I mean, there are various factors, but, you know, it's just a case of, you know, where the words uttered didn't have the desired effect.
One thing I had a lot of trouble with is the noise in pubs and nightclubs. I can't hear a single thing things people are saying. So even when I was 18, I was old before my time. I liked late bars with no music, or just somewhere quiet where I could understand people. And before the smoking ban, my friends used to be at the table all smoking and talking. I couldn't hear a thing. And when the smoking ban came in, suddenly all of my friends started spending the entire night outside. And that's actually where I picked up the habit, because I ended up spending the whole night out there because I could talk to people, and I started finding myself expanding my circle of friends an awful lot, because I was able to talk to strangers. I could overhear conversations and think of things to say, which I wouldn't have had that opportunity to do inside.
Frustration or slight bemusement. I know, say for example, many occasions people have come to me with maybe, you know, basic English, or, you know, just even the bare idea of what they want. Say for example, working in a shop. Say for example, working in a video game shop. And when someone is unable to communicate what they want, and no matter what kind of option or no matter what kind of help you try to throw at them, or not throw at them, but, you know, give their way, you know, oftentimes tempers can flare up simply at one's own frustration to articulate oneself.
And I went to France for 2 weeks during the summer, on 2 occasions, and I'd say I was outside of Paris, and I think really even in France they have a certain reputation for being a little bit hard to talk to, and I had a lot of trouble talking to them when I was trying to talk in English. But really the French, I think, are particularly appreciative if you try and talk in French. It doesn't matter if you're terrible at it. They just feel that you aren't a foreigner coming in and disrespecting their culture. If you're prepared to try, then they're really accommodating and they will listen to you.
There'll be times as well, you know, when I was living abroad where, you know, I'd look for, you know, I'd be looking for, you know, directions to a certain place, and You know, some languages you speak really quickly. You just rifle off about 10 words in the amount of time that you need to take a breath. And you know, you wouldn't really hear, you wouldn't be able to hear them completely at all. But I think it hasn't really been a case of anything that was really frustrating, because there's more of you're more kind of inclined just to, you know, nod politely and just say, you know, could you either repeat yourself, or you know, if it doesn't go through the second time, then you just go, oh, okay, thank you very much, and you bugger off and look for someone who can speak English.
I did a semester abroad in the United States in the autumn of 2008 when I was in the University of Limerick. And obviously, going from Ireland to America, I was like, oh, this is going to be a great experience. Like, and, you know, there's no language barrier like some of my friends who were going off to like mainland Europe and to a battle of French or a German barrier or what have you. And didn't go into America, and the look of complete bemusement when you opened your mouth and followed by, you Irish? And then all of a sudden, like, everything you said having to be slowed down and like retranslated, like not shouting well in the Irish, but asking where the off license is when you're told it's a liquor store. And you know, it's just those little things, like, and that's the fun side of like of getting to you know, acclimatize yourself to somewhere else, like learning about new people and cultures.
I lived in Spain for about 7 months back in 2003, 2004. And I went over. I had a reasonable amount of Spanish, and I was able to speak, you know, reasonably decent Spanish to people. But I had no real idea of the kind of colloquial terms that were used, with the exception, of course, of all the cuss words. You know, first thing you learn in any language is the curse words. But I was chatting to a mate of mine, and he was doing a presentation for one of the the art college that he was in. Well, it was affiliated with Universidad Carlos XIII, King Charles XIII University. But he was doing this presentation anyways, and you know, I met up with him in town for a cup of coffee, had a bit of chat, and he was just on his way to the college. And I said in Spanish, "Stick it to the man, pegalo la hombre," or whatever it was, and he was just like, "What?" And I just said, "Oh, stick it to the man." He was like, "Ah ha ha, no, James, it's suerte." You say, "Bueno suerte, good luck." But he's like, "Ah," you know. And from that day forward, they actually started calling me El Palo, which is the stick.
We were in Venice, and it has the combined factors that, like, it's an incredibly popular city with tourists, so a lot of shopkeepers would have a basic grasp of English, and you'd pick up a couple of words as you're there during the week, knowing what needs to be said when it needs to be said and everything. And also the fact that I've heard that people in Venice are very proud of their Italian and don't want outsiders kind of necessarily defiling it with their pigeon tongues.
It's these little things that, you know, kind of form the basis of the discourse when you're, you know, when you're a strange man in a strange land.
But I just remember the actual feeling of panic of just like, oh my god, what's the American for off license? You know, in my head. And you know, like every Irish person, about 85% of my television is American. I must have heard the phrase liquor store about 1,000 times before I went to the States, but you know, it just wouldn't come to me.
The general exclamation of "fuck" feels good. I mean, just regards getting frustrations out and so on and so forth. The thing is, say for example, somebody coming in without, I suppose, really colloquial English, colloquial Irish English in particular, might interpret "fuck" without the you know, without it being pointed at anyone as being pointed at them, you know, such as they've been taught that "fuck" is a general bad word, and that's led to a couple of fallings out. That's led to a couple of misunderstandings.
I suppose the one that we got the most fun out of, because it was the most harmless, but the Americans just seemed to find it very charming, was saying something was grand. Whereas, like, you know, in Ireland, you know, the kitchen's flooded, we're sure it'll be grand. Whereas in America, it's like, how are you doing today? Grand, like, you know, it is, you're grand. But to an American, it's like, grand? Like, you know, like, where's the lanyards and the ticker tape falling? No, this doesn't seem very grand. It seems pretty all right, pretty all set.
You know, for a while it actually did show me there's a few expressions, you know, gatch, for example, which I know now means, yeah, somebody's manner of walking.
I was here over a year before I heard the phrase either old doll and gawk, and like I was completely thrown for six. Like the old doll was the one I heard first, and it was just someone said like all dolls are mad for like would say doing such and such a thing. Would say like when it comes to would say kind of work environment. Would say like how people behave. Like all dolls are always like that. What are always like that? All dolls. Like I had to get him to slow down and his absolute sense of wonder explaining all dolls. A girl. And I'm like, okay, and and then of course, then there's that moment, that eureka moment, like all dog girl, but of course.
I kind of threw myself into the city though as much as possible, and now I actually find myself when I'm back home in Limerick actually using expressions that would be more suited for Cork.
We get people who've come here from like a non-national perspective, just their way of speaking is just brilliant. I find so many ways because you'll have someone still speaking a really strong, we'll say like European accent or like Asian accent or wherever they may be from, and just taking on like the slangs and the intonations every so often is just it's great. Like it's like it's a mark of real achievement. Like not only have you mastered English, which is one of the hardest languages to learn, so I've heard, but you've also learned dialect as well, which is something that any of us like going for second languages ourselves would only hope to grasp in many, many years. And you realize how much of a lifeline it is, like, and how like you are now uh, struggling to keep your head above water in a communicatory sense.
If anything, it's a rather clear indicator of intent, more so than fractured languages. Somebody comes up to you, and again, I worked in enough license where there would be a number of people passing through every day, and a lot of people wouldn't necessarily have an understanding of written English. So when someone would approach you asking you to read a form and so on and so forth, and wouldn't necessarily be able to get past this country's unique brand of legal mumbo jumbo, you'd have to make with a lot of hand gestures when explaining, say, procedure, or if something's laid out, using this kind of hand language and so on and so forth. It can be an amazing tool for communication.
You see people on the phone, and they'll be gesticulating as they're on the phone. Obviously, like like some I have a mental hangover from trying to talk to someone in person. It's like this has happened because, and obviously to no avail. All you've got to rely on is your tone of voice. But then when you've got like your body language to work with, like it's a lifeline.
Mediterranean Europeans, they're very egregious people. The way they stand, the way they communicate, and so on and so forth. It's a joy to watch, and it certainly makes things a whole hell of a lot easier.
Well, miscommunication, it can mean a lot of things, but basically it's where the intended message ended up getting disrupted by some, in some shape or form. It could have been any, through a variety of factors, be it accent, be it maybe choice of vocabulary, or maybe somebody's intentions didn't quite come across the way that they intended it to, which is basically can cause a lot of kind of disarray in the actual conversation.
It's a very hard question to answer, but just from day-to-day situations, it's a question of constantly being aware, I suppose, and knowing that we'll say what you intend to say can sometimes get completely carried off through factors that you didn't even think about considering.
I mean, we could be there for ages talking about what means what to who, or what have you. So a nice general quick definition is say, missing out on each other's intentions.